Okay, we're good. It's been a while since we've done one of these, and I wanted to do one last week, but finally getting to it this week. As an aside, how do YouTube kids do it every single week, let alone every week, every day, or multiple times a day? No wonder their mental health is fucked. Oh, poor things having to do this. And here's me over 50 thinking I can. Anyway, firstly, so picking up on our post out that said we wanted to do a new quick short course that we're calling Designs on Thinking. That's full. Thank you very much for those who have signed up. Can't wait to do it. We're going to do it next week, so we'll let you know how it goes. It's a global thing, so we're sort of spreading from Europe to Los Angeles to Singapore to New Zealand. So it's a beautiful global pilot, I guess. And so I doubt we can find a time that works for everyone. So what's great is we will do two pilots. One is we'll do it live and engage with people, no more than 60 minutes or something. And then we will package that up and make it available so we can then pilot with those who couldn't make it, which will be fantastic. And they can try it as a sort of recorded experience. That going well and seeing that it works, we will open it up. And so, if you're keen to have a look at that and be part of that recorded experience, do let us know. We could maybe add a few more to that. What is that going to be about? What is Designs on Thinking about? Fundamentally, we're not going to go all the way. It's almost the introduction to BIF and then the introduction to the introduction to BIF. Yuni and I were talking about, this thing called design thinking, and I've seen it everywhere for about the last decade or more. And there's a story about that I'll set up in the actual recorded in the experience about why I was so shocked when I came across it, because we had been doing that kind of diamond-shaped process of divergent convergent thinking applied through innovation process. We'd already been doing that for 15 years, and suddenly this thing called design thinking blows up. I went to Stanford and happened to be at IDEO and happened to be on their program, and to be honest with you, I thought it was pretty entry level. So I'm interested to explore what we're calling Designs on Thinking, because the ultimate end point of any innovation, design, creativity program at work that seeks to add new value is only going to be delivered by your creative smarts. So that's that. We're going to go and get to that, and we can tell you more about it. What I thought we could talk about today, we watched this video about this guy who did something clever, and every now and then he would come all the way in and say something, and then he would go back as a way to hold viewers' attention, and I quite liked it. So I might try that. I'm going to forever remain new to this shit and being out and putting it out there. And I guess the only reason that I'm really starting to put this stuff out there is, at BIF, we've created a portfolio of programs, because I fundamentally believe, and I think the market's starting to support that belief. In fact, I don't believe it. I know it. That the future value of an individual realizing their own purpose in their life that is intrinsically meaningful, and puts their unique talents into a way that adds value for them and everyone else they're involved with, and our human family as a whole thriving in what is a very challenged few decades coming up, and the kind of problems we have to solve. Fundamentally, that resolves down to, can everyone reconnect with that innate talent that they were born with and bring it to bear and apply that in the world for their own great pathway and for all of us. And for me, doing that resolves to this thing called creativity, or better expressed is creativity as accessed through the neuroscience of the creative brain. And I think it's been playing out in the last, since December I first saw it, but it's been playing out in the last couple of months, this explosion of, DALL-E, is that how you say it? DALL-E, Midjourney, the AI-powered image creation platforms, all the way through to, whatever Microsoft's doing with Bing, but, powered by ChatGPT. And the power of artificial intelligence to start to replicate some of what we do. And I've been thinking a lot around that in terms of a stack. I think today in innovation, when I work with clients, a really nice way of getting them to envisage what this innovation could look like is to think about a stack. And those stacks are usually made up of hardware, some kind of product, some kind of physical product, a software expression of that in terms of how that product is supported through technology, social media, software, etc. And then on top of that, I think of our humanware. So now a stack made up of 3 parts: hardware, software, humanware. Hardware revolution is done, and I think Apple is, I don't like putting Apple up there as an expression, because what they do, hardly anyone else can do. They are the exception to the rule. But their manufacturing processes, they've lifted the lid on that a little bit lately as troubles with China have emerged, and them thinking about how do they become less reliant on China. I don't know if you've been reading about their manufacturing processes, what they've developed in China, but it is extraordinary. I think they're the zenith of this idea of creating hardware. But hardware is anything, it's the packaging that you open any cupboard and you'll see hardware. Carrying our foodstuffs, bringing them home from the supermarket, bathing and showering, all of those things. Think of those as hardware, the products we use in everyday life. Some of them add meaning, some of them are junk. Software is used to be, apps. We used to think of software as apps, anything that's made by technology, etc. But now, we're approaching a whole new revolution in the software space with ChatGPT, etc. And you realize, at first they thought that, and I thought too, that, the emergence of artificial intelligence would never be able to replicate the creative brain. That we were safe, that I was safe, that as an innovator, even as a designer, or whatever it happens to be, if you're in the creative industries, you would be safe. I mean, have you seen what ChatGPT can do when it's asked to write a story, to write a screenplay, to write a script, to write an ad, to come up with a new idea for a game? Board Game was one I followed on a guy I follow. He engaged with the software and asked it to ideate with him a new board game. And my goodness, it was extraordinary. So, what this artificial intelligence is showing is that more and more it's creeping into our humanware, and that its ability to abstract information from patterns that it has stored and been trained upon, this natural language ocean that it's drawn from the web, and then creating patterns around that and being able to abstract information and do what our brains do at the bluntest level of creativity, is to combine disparate bits of information and put them into a new, let's say, idea or a new format or a new way, and then express that through the use of artificial intelligence. It's extraordinary. So, we will always be able to make tools and hardware, but that's getting automated. There's the software revolution and the ChatGPTs of the world that are starting to eat into our humanware. What's left for us? What is going to be left for us? Because I fundamentally believe the Biff Kids journey we're on is that if we can nurture and develop our young people into their creativity, that future-proofs them for life. They'll be able to imagine, solve problems, originate, etc. Well, it turns out that if you really play with ChatGPT and use it beyond the small glitches and the problems that they're not small, but sometimes giving you false information, what it will never be able to do is what we can call the transcendent idea. The ideas that come based from a life made up of tons of experience. The things that we do in life that impact us, that we integrate, that we embody, that help us become who we are, that when we're using information and stimulus from the outside world, that it combines with all of that experience within, and we have that blinding, what we call our kapow, our aha moment, that is the combination of all that transcendent experience, or experience that we transcend through our innate humanness, combining with stimulus in the world to have a breakthrough idea or to solve a problem. So far, it seems these artificial intelligent engines will not be able to do that. Why? Because they're not alive. They're not sentient. They don't think that way. They don't experience that way. Also, I think that if you are in the creative industries and you know how to unleash, nurture, and apply your true creativity, You've armed yourself with the knowledge of how your creativity best expresses for you and the kinds of ideas and problems and challenges and tasks and briefs that you can apply it to create new value, to innovate new value and realize that in value in the world. Artificial intelligence never be able to do that because it's not alive. It's not experiencing life. And if you, I'll finish on this. Those moments of experience that we gather, that we've integrated, that are part of us, we transcend those moments through some kind of process we cannot describe. We cannot encode that process because we cannot describe that process. You cannot truly say that you know exactly how that idea came to you because it came to you. I think the language that we use around our creativity and how we express it is, I've just had a thought. Something's come to me. Last night I was daydreaming and you know what, I saw myself doing X, Y, Z. Machines will never be able to do that, or I really hope they'll never be able to do that because they're not sentient, they're not alive, they're not experiential beings making sense of their experience, deriving meaning from it, and that meaning surfaces to inspire, motivate, energize us forward through the substance of our ideas that we're having every day. That's the kind of knowledge that we're trying to put in the world through BIF. That's what we want to empower everyone with. Because if you can do it, and then you can collaborate that with someone else who does it in a different way, and their creativity manifests in a different way, then together you can realize the exponential value, the likes of which a machine will never do. That is your humanware. So, you know, BIF is, we're thinking about this stack, this hardware, software, humanware, and that we have to really invest in that which differentiates us from artificial intelligence, and the bits, the slivers of bit that they're never going to be able to replicate. That's our differentiated, let's say, advantage in the world. The bit that we can really add. I think there's a fourth bit to that stack, which is earthware, right? Because everything from hardware and software and humanware comes from the earth, comes from our planet resources. But that's a video for another time. For the moment, let's just leave you with thinking about the question of what is your humanware? What do you bring? What differentiates you from these, incredible engines that humans are building to do that can do some of what we can do, but they will never be able to do all of that which we do. And for us at BIF, the bit is that creativity, your human creativity, your genius within. And we want to help you realize that in the world.